Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Coach's Corner edition of the Bridging Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Furtado. Well, every week on Coach's Corner, I share what is going on in my world. I'm actually going to pivot and start using it as an opportunity and a platform to really answer questions that parents are asking me, other coaches, athletes, and just kind of getting to be Coach's Corner, like a little press conference at the end of the week, and just sharing what's going on, sharing the news. And there's a lot of news in the NBA and all the trades, but this podcast is not dedicated for that. I'm sure there's a ton of other great ones you can go check out for the trade breakdowns. But history was made in the basketball world this week by none other than the one and only King James. He has passed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the scoring record with 38,388 points. Probably has more points now by the time you are listening to this and I am recording this. Unreal. And I think I'm not going to talk basketball specifics. I want to talk about LeBron's legacy, and I want to really help us reframe how we think of athletes' legacies as well. So obviously LeBron is debatably one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And I think the one thing that I really admire about this accomplishment, and a lot of people are probably talking about, and you've maybe seen it, is LeBron considers himself to be a pass-first player. LeBron has been an outstanding teammate for a majority of his career, with, maybe the exception of the announcement when he went from Cleveland to Miami when he was younger, right? And he's a human, he's going to make mistakes, and, maybe it seemed arrogant at the time, and it probably was. I kind of believed him when they thought they were going to win 7 championships. But one of the things that I think is really remarkable about that is, like, LeBron has always been committed to the bigger picture besides himself and the bigger narrative besides himself. And I think he recognizes, like, what his brand means and what it says now that, he's in different Space Jam movies, he's in commercials. Like, obviously he's been in commercials for so long, but, he's really built that brand for himself now that he's, especially here in Los Angeles, and kind of shifting that over to Bronny. And I really want to implore you to think about the way that we think about athletes' legacies. And I think, LeBron has not only done so much for the game, what I'm talking about for his teammates, I'm talking about LeBron has, started and founded a school, the I Promise School in Akron, Ohio. I believe it's an elementary school that, provides basically free education for, underserved kids in that community. And I don't know all the details of the, school, but his commitment to philanthropy and, to activism, during 2020 and during George Floyd, and, just always giving a voice, using his voice, for good, I think is something that really stands out to me from the other athletes that he is compared to. And I think, obviously Kobe was really promoting female sports towards the end of his career. But I can't remember what Michael Jordan's cause was. I mean, he expanded the game, globalized it, got people from all over the world to play the game. And this episode is not meant to diminish what Michael Jordan has contributed to the game of basketball, but an opportunity to reflect on, how athletes use their platforms for impact, right? I mean, that's what Bridging Impact's all about, is transferring that impact that was given to you and kind of giving that back. And as you can kind of hear LeBron talk about, his accomplishment, and talk about, the genuine honor he has to be on the same, talking terms and pass the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It's just that gratitude for playing the game, that gratitude for playing the game. And I think when it comes to it, when we view athletes, we view them, as win or lose, success, their stats. But what if we started viewing them and looking at them at, how they genuinely use their platforms to give back and to make an impact, right? In impact this is something that I've thought about for quite a while now. It's kind of hard to measure, right? Like, it's really hard to be like, like LeBron impacted 1,000 people, like there's no data point behind it. Points per game, there's data points. All right, wins in the finals, there's data points behind it. And it's easier for our minds to kind of wrap around that. But, and there's a little bit more of maybe of an art form to it. There's not necessarily a right answer for the impact, because LeBron's probably had an enormous impact on so many different people, in terms of basketball, but also just in real life, like real genuine, like make someone's life better. And I think with that, I was listening to Hassan Minaj, and he's a comedian that he went on the Old Man and Three podcast. And he was kind of talking, and he kind of opened my mind to this. And that's a great interview if you want to go listen to that. He dives more into this towards the end of the episode about, how we should really, start viewing athletes as their contributions off the court. Like, do we really want to be celebrating, people who are, obviously they're incredible on the field, on the court, and then, off the field, off the court, they're making really poor judgments and hurting other people. But we still, they got that ring though, so it was worth it. Or they cheated, but they got that ring though, so it's worth it. And really asking ourselves, like, what are we promoting? Because what we promote is what kids actually value. And what kids value is how kids want to fit in. So if kids are wanting to fit in to try and be like Mike, right? To be specific, they may try and be like, oh, I'm going to, gamble before games. I'm going to roll dice. And, it may not be a direct effect, but they are watching what the professionals are doing. They are watching what we celebrate in the media, in the news. And so just being really mindful of that as a coach, as a parent, and just, it's probably I'm not a parent. And I can imagine, it's a little more challenging when you are a parent and you want to, kind of mold or model, your kid's behavior after someone. I mean, LeBron's an easier one, but, after athletes, I think about Andrew Whitworth from the Rams and the Bengals before, because he was so intertwined in communities and just really trying to teach players about that. I know when you're a kid, number one, you don't really want to listen to your parents. Number two, you want to be like the coolest NBA players, want to be like the coolest professional athletes, thinking about Ja Morant. But Ja Morant and the Grizzlies have been really childish recently and don't handle themselves like professionals, right? And, for better or for worse, and that's probably another episode for another day. Regardless, we have to be really mindful as coaches about who we talk about and what we celebrate, because at the end of the day, as humans, we make decisions to fit in with the group, whether we like it or not. We want to be a part of the group. And so, again, I'm going to build on this layer of, I think LeBron's, team first mentality has been one of the biggest reasons he's been so successful, even with teams that, have a lack of talent, for better or for worse. And I think when we look back at it, obviously he had the Miami Heat teams and they could have probably won every finals. But again, his team first mentality, of pointing to someone after, they made a great pass to him, or, just lifting his teammates up. You see that a lot in his game. And that's something as a high school coach that, sometimes I'm not seeing. Sometimes I'm seeing, they got a great pass from someone, boom, that person makes a shot, that person celebrates only themselves. And what I'm really hoping to teach is hey, point to that person, thank you, great pass, great screen, and just trying to get people involved, because I know, it's not always the great flashy plays that get the highlights, and we highlight the people that beat their chest. And, I'm honestly a person that's not against celebrating oneself, right? But I do believe there needs to be celebrating oneself and celebrating your teammates, getting up for your teammates. And that's what I'm really hoping that LeBron's, mission and legacy really leaves. And I want you to think about how you want to bring that to your teams, your athletes that you work with, and ask them, what legacies do they want to leave? Do they want to be, selfish only? If your legacy is you only score 20 points per game, or 30 points per game, or 40 points per game, and won 6 titles, and, that's a great sports legacy. But what's your legacy off the court? How much of an impact did you make in your communities? What kind of role model were you? And I think that's how we need to start judging, and placing value on some of these athletes, and placing value on character. That's how we really develop character in young people. Young people, number one, they will listen to adults that care about them, right? Some more than others. And we have to, it's just the job of the media to do that. So, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you agree with me? Am I wrong on a certain point? Like, how do you think that, we can actually genuinely value character in a player like LeBron versus, Michael Jordan? I'm just curious because I don't have the right answers, and it's a conversation that I think should be open because I think it's what's best for our youth because they are the ones, again, I'm going to reiterate the point, that are looking up to this, generation of professional athletes on how to conduct themselves. So if you enjoyed this episode, obviously go give it a like, comment, and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you can share it with a friend, if you agree with it, and then I'll put in the link description how you can connect with me. And I'd love, to talk. And, if you have any ideas for Coach's Corner, any questions, feel free to ask me. Make sure that you're subscribed. Every Wednesday, I am trying to drop a podcast interview. Sometimes it doesn't, next week I actually have like a special episode probably coming up of, why bridging impact. So, and then every Friday I drop Coach's Corner. So that's where you can find me. Post a lot of basketball content on YouTube and my social medias, really trying to work on basketball and leadership. So we can be better leaders on and off the floor and shoot for greatness. So have a great one. Have a great weekend. See y'all later. Coach Furtado out.